All right. Hi, students. We have Allie here,
Hello.
Giovanna, and Michelle. They are all early childhood special educators, and I'm so grateful that they're here to share a little bit about their experience so we can learn from them and learn about what they're up to and how they collaborate and work with families. So do you want to start with just where you work and the population and the age and just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I got my undergrad in early childhood studies at Sonoma State University, and I worked at a nature-based preschool there. And then after that, I got into the program at San Francisco State to get my early childhood special education teaching credential and master's. While I was there, a teacher that was in Giovanna's position at the time let Amber Friesen know that there was an opening at Cobb for the SDC preschool classroom. And Amber passed that information along, and I went interviewed, I fell in love, and I got the job. So that's where I've been the last almost 4 years. So I teach anywhere from 9 to 13, 3 to 5-year-olds, and they have a range of disabilities. So in the San Francisco Unified School District, in preschool, they don't separate kids based on type or severity of disability. So I have students that just have speech and language impairments and will often spend time in a general education classroom. And then I have students who have nurses by their side. They can't sit up by themselves. They need feeding accommodations and AAC devices. And then I think the other thing to note about my classroom is they are all mainly come from low-income families, and I have very few families that speak English as a first language.
Okay. Thanks, Allie. Giovanna?
Yep. I am Giovanna. I am the inclusion teacher at Dr. William Cobb Elementary School. Me and Michelle co-teach together. So there are 24 kids in our classroom, 9 right now with IEPs. Typically we have 8, but 1 was identified in the middle of the school year, so he jumped onto my caseload. Previous to this, I worked at a private preschool. I'm sure lots of the students will be familiar with it if they're in a program, but it's called Gate Path. So I was there as an aide, and then in the early intervention program, and then I switched to preschool where I taught a special day class, and then I was the inclusion support in the afternoon. And then Allie connected me in one of our classes to Cobb, and I was hired there, and I've been there for 2 years.
Awesome, thanks. And Michelle?
Yeah, so as Giovanna said, we work together in the same classroom. So at Cobb, there are 2 classrooms. There's a special day class and the inclusion classroom. And I am the general education teacher in the inclusion classroom. So Giovanna and I work together. And as she said, she has 9 on her caseload. And then the other 15, one of them he's kind of both. But yeah, 16 are generally in the general education part of the inclusion classroom. But we work together. We teach all the kids. So, they're all in our class.
Yeah.
And we have inclusion time with Allie's classroom as well. So we share a yard and stuff like that. So I got my bachelor's in child development from SF State 10 years ago. And then I worked in various settings. So I worked in in-home settings. I worked at the child care center on campus, the ASI center. I've worked in private religious preschools and nonprofits. I worked with Compass Family Services that serves homeless families. And then I went back to SF State to get my master's in early childhood education, and I also got a multiple subjects teaching credential. So I just completed the master's in fall 2019. So, and I've been at Cobb since August.
Okay. I did my student teaching for my master's at Cobb, actually. Yeah. In the inclusion classroom with Laura Courier.
That's whose position Giovanna took.
Yeah. And who was the guy teacher, the gen ed teacher?
Mr. Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was there. And then there were 2 aides. I forgot their names.
Michelle Williams.
Yes, Michelle. Is she still there?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Oh, tell her I said hi. I'm pregnant with my second child. I'm 36 weeks right now.
Wow, congratulations.
Wow.
And when I was doing my student teaching in 2015, I was pregnant with my first. So she'll remember me
Oh,
as
great.
Yeah, I'm sure she will.
the big pregnant intern. All right, so we can just kind of popcorn if you know, feel like you have an answer or a story that you want to share based on these questions that I came up with. But I'd love to hear more, a little bit about your, philosophy of working with families and partnering with families.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I think it's obviously I thought a lot about this. I think it's going to vary depending on who you are as a person and also who you are as a teacher, and then the demographic and the type of students that you're teaching. I do always say to people when I talk about partnering with families that I feel like myself personally walk a very fine line of working for the district and honoring policies and legalities type of things, and then also wanting to empower my families and support them to do what's best for themselves and their students as they make their way through special education. So I do tend to lean more towards the side of the partnering with the families, and so I think that like my policy or my philosophy is just honesty and forwardness with families, and that can mean a million different things to a million different people, but I think oftentimes, especially when students are assigned to special day classes, that's a scary situation. They don't always understand what it means, especially for families that don't speak English. So being human and being real and saying things to families that maybe the person who assessed them at intake might not have disclosed just because they see a million kids, a year, and just being forward and showing that they can trust you and it's not a scary situation. And so I kind of try to almost be like a friend and a family member to them, someone that they can trust, and that I'm not this, scary teacher or someone that works for the district, that we're all here together and we're all here because of your student.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wrote my field study was on family partnership in a preschool setting, and but I mean a lot of the same things Ali said. Just there is there's pressure from the district and from our site to do certain things, and we kind of have to balance that with the needs and the priorities of the families. They don't always line up, and the teacher's kind of the middle person in there, but we really want to value what the families value, and look at their strengths and what they're bringing. And I mean, every family that comes to our school, they love their children so much, and they have these dreams for them. They have just things that they care about and things that they want their child to be able to do and to learn. And so we really want to be able to provide that as much as we can, but you have to get to know the families in order to do that. You have to really have relationships with them, and they need to be comfortable with you and open to talking to you so that you can find out what they really care about.
Do you find that it's hard to kind of make that initial bond with families, or some families more than others? Like connecting with them and earning their trust?
Yeah, I mean, that can, there's there can be, there's times when there's just like awkward interactions that kind of start you off on the wrong foot. There's cultural boundaries, I would say, that, like Ali mentioned, a lot of it can be language. But also just cultural practices or what's acceptable, or how they take the way that you say something, or the way that you're sending out information or something. You have to navigate that and be aware of your biases and be aware of the way that you're approaching things, and just kind of try to see things from parents' perspective. And and then in pre-K, it's often the first time that parents are sending their kids to school, and that can be really scary. And to kind of navigate that and let the parents know that their child is safe, but also kind of, help them know that their child is safe and that they don't need to like stay all day and, make sure of that. Just helping them feel comfortable in that.
Have you found any strategies that work in like not only helping families feel comfortable, like saying goodbye to their children, but also earning your trust, or especially when there are those, barriers already kind of put in place? I'm going off script a little bit, sorry.
I can speak to that. Working with kids with a pretty severe autism, I have a pretty strict kind of no stay drop off policy in the beginning of the school year. And I have parents that struggle with that for reasons that Michelle kind of touched on. And I would say that like the way that I've kind of gotten around from that barrier, I don't want to offend parents, but I have a way that I run my classroom that's been successful. And I'm still wanting to build partnerships in the beginning with families. I think two main things. First, acknowledging their fears and saying, I know how scary this is. I have families that will come and tour, and they've been placed in my classroom, but he's not toilet trained. He tantrums for 20 minutes. And I'm like, that's why we're here. We're here for these things. Like, what a perfect place for that. And I think the other thing too is keeping parents in the loop. So if a child takes the bus, which is really scary for a lot of parents, they show up on the first day and step out of the classroom and send some photos and a quick update. So they know that their child's safe and happy, and that you're putting that kind of extra thought towards their child and their family during that time.
Open communication, I think, is really important. So if a parent comes to you with a concern, to really take that seriously and let them know that you're addressing it. And you're not always addressing it exactly the way that they want you to, but to let them know that you heard them and that you care. That can go a long way. And being willing to admit when you made a mistake, I really didn't like how I approached that, or let's try again, and letting them know that you admit that. I think that can build trust.
I would say too, like making sure you're setting those expectations for all families that you have in your class. Parents talk and they see your interactions with other parents. So being consistent with everyone also creates that trusting environment.
Yeah, I like that. All right. So let's see. Maybe can one of you or all of you or two of you share like maybe a specific example of a time that worked really well in connecting with a family, or something that didn't work really well and that you learned from, and then maybe like Michelle said, you're like, can I have a redo, or can we try this again?
I don't have like a specific example with a kid, but I thought about this for a while, and I was like, when is a time that you're like, you're always in constant communication with families and always collaborating with them, but when you're potty training a kid, when they come to your class, is when you have to be on it, right? Like you have to be exchanging emails and phone calls and seeing what their schedule is at home, because if you're not doing it at school and they're not doing it at home, or you guys are, not doing equal amounts of work, then no one's going to get potty trained. And everyone will probably have this experience when you're working in preschool. Maybe you choose an early intervention route, but you'll see the difference when you are not like vibing with families during that time, because if the kid's ready, potty training should be happening really quick if you guys are on the same page. And you know, if it's not, like maybe you need to be putting in some more work, or, you know, supporting parents so that they can put in some more work. I always feel like that's a nice little, like, I can tell where I am with families and like how comfortable we are and like talking and all that when potty training comes along, and how, I don't know, how that goes. So
yeah, how the communication is flowing.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think too, I sometimes feel like my method is controversial, but since I run a small classroom, I don't have 24 children. I typically have 9 on average. I give parents the option of their ways that they would like to communicate with me, and it's typically text message. And I can see how that could be controversial, or some teachers are not okay with it, and I totally get that. But that's worked really well for me. I think it makes me human, and I'm available not just through like a formal email kind of method. And for students that are coming to my classroom, they are very severely impacted by their disability usually. And on top of that, my parents very rarely speak English. So it gives us the ability to be in constant contact throughout the school day, in the language of their choice, in the method of their choice. I kind of was thinking about it last night that a lot of the families that we work with are low income, so they're not necessarily sitting at a desk with their email open all day. And so let's give them a way to be more accessible to their child's education. If they're working in a factory, or they're working at McDonald's or Sephora, or somewhere where they're not sitting in front of a computer. So that's really worked well for me. And I think too, being available sometimes when you're not in school is really helpful for parents. So I often times have a student that gives mom trouble when getting dressed in the morning and coming to school, and she really relies on my support during that time. And I'm able to kind of do that while I'm prepping the classroom in the morning, and I'm available to her. So that's worked well for me.
Can I ask how do you support her during that time? Do you hop on the phone with her, or?
We typically just text. I would be happy to hop on the phone, but she'll just kind of send pictures and be like, this is what's going on. And then I can just kind of give immediate feedback. Like, have you tried this? Have you read the social story, I sent home about getting dressed in the morning? And then just reminding parents too, that it's okay to have hard days, and that, and I do remind her that, he does need to come to school, and I think that he'll benefit from you guys kind of having that battle, but still coming to school.
Right. Yeah. Do you find that families, maybe text you too much or too often? That's always the fear, I think, with teachers giving out their phone numbers.
Yeah, I've actually not had that situation before. I have families that text me after 9 to 5, the normal work hours, but they're super respectful about it. They don't expect a response right away. And it's typically the only time they would do that was, again, if they really needed support in something. So a lot of kids we have that are nonverbal, and they're using communication devices that can be really confusing to teachers, let alone parents that have no experience in that. So it could be like, he's throwing a tantrum and he keeps hitting this button and I don't know what it means. Like, can you shoot me a text and kind of just walk me through that? So I've not had that issue, just because we've kind of built that trust, and that I kind of set that expectation in the beginning of the year. But I do see for how that could be a problem for, some families that you could, come in contact with.
Yeah. Does anybody have, an example of something that didn't go well with trying to connect with a family, or there were some hiccups along the road?
I think I without going into too much specifics, there are things that, so late pickups can be kind of a point of contention, and as well as like turning in paperwork. And so both of those things are things where I, it's easy for all the interactions to be negative when, when there's late pickups and when they haven't turned in paperwork. Cause then, every time you talk to them, you're kind of like, so do you have that field trip form? They can't go without it. And they're like, you keep on asking about this. I'm like, well, yeah, cause we want your kid to go on this field trip or whatever it is. Or even just like the school asked us to collect this, right? And yeah, just to, it can be pretty hard to balance. What we want to do is we want to be telling positive stories, and you want to have a good relationship so that when you do have to say something negative or collect something or whatever, it they already have a positive relationship with you. But it's hard if the beginning of school, like the first week of school, they pick up 3 times late and you're like, and I don't know, just that's an area that I've struggled, right? Like, well, I can't stay, an hour after school with your kids, just babysitting them. I've got stuff that I have to be doing, and yet I want to be saying positive things to you, and,
Right.
how to like be firm and understanding at the same time.
So was there one example, with a family that was doing that consistently, and you were able to do something so it stopped or it got better?
I'm not gonna say, I can't say that it stopped. I think there's also, it didn't stop. We tried, we talked to them. There's a lot going on in that family, and so we have to kind of see that. And you want the kids to come to school because then you can check on them and see how they're doing, and you just they have that consistency that's really important. But it's hard when like they come and then they're dysregulated from stuff that's going on at home, and then they're not getting picked up and until an hour after school. And so I think we did get to a point where we had what I would consider a positive relationship with the family, where but that meant letting go of a lot, right? So just saying, you know what, it's fine. I'm probably going to end up staying, an hour late a couple times a week. And that's, I have to be okay with that, and value the relationship with this family more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
I had a situation, and I think we run into this a lot at our school because we teach students from a variety of different backgrounds. I had a student that was very severely impacted by his disability, mainly physically and medically. And he was doing really well when he started with me, and then his health kind of took a turn for the worse. And the entire IEP team was really very, very concerned about this child's health. He was kind of disintegrating in front of our eyes, and I could not get through to the family and understand why they weren't taking him to the doctor and, doing all of these other things. And it took me pretty much the entire school year to finally get through to them. And kind of what the barrier was I was not understanding how they were viewing his disability kind of in their life, and how their cultural background played a role in that. And it ended up becoming a wonderful relationship at the end, and the child got the help he needed. But things like assuming that the mom was the decision maker in the family, and only talking to the mom about this situation, and where really behind the scenes, I didn't know that someone else in the family was making the decisions, and she was kind of just the spokesperson to me. The way that they lived with grandparents, multiple generations of grandparents, and kind of so the dad had different beliefs about the son's disability than the older generations did, and so there was some clashing behind the scenes at home. So dad was in agreement with kind of what I was recommending that they do, and the grandparents, for example, were not okay with him having a feeding tube, and they thought that he could just eat like a regular kid. And so there were a lot of those barriers. And so kind of once we dug into that, and we brought some social workers in and people that could, I want to say, just relate better to them. And they had someone that they felt was seeing both sides, maybe more than I was, that had been in their home. She came to the table and kind of helped us, and it ended up being a really positive situation in the end. But it was kind of my first experience with that cultural differences, and kind of having to like navigate through that and figure out why I was not getting through to the parents.
Sharing that definitely can come up, with your with differences in who you think is, making the decisions. And I tell my students that all the time, especially like parents or family members are gonna have different views, even though they live in the same house. Did you want to share anything, Giovanna, before I go to the next question?
We'll go on to the next one.
Okay. So does anyone want to share a specific story of a powerful connection you've had with a family that's resulted in positive collaboration and goals for the child, or, the child's intervention in the classroom?
I can share about a student that we all share now because of the positive situation. I had a little boy start at the beginning of the year, and a couple of weeks into the school year, and mom came in she was assigned my classroom from the district, and she came in to kind of just see what it was all about. It was her first child. So she didn't really understand what a special education classroom was and what it looked like and what it entailed. So she came in to tour. She didn't speak maybe but 3 words of English, but she kind of understood what I was telling her. And this was that same mom that was saying, he throws tantrums for 20 minutes. He's not potty trained. What about him riding on the bus by himself? Things like that. And I was able to, Giovanna speaks Spanish, so we were able to kind of collaborate and reassure mom about all of these things and remind her that's why we're here, and that it's a safe space, and that we'd be in constant communication. So like I said, he showed up on the first day on the school bus, and mom and I were able to text back and forth throughout the day and kind of let her know that he was doing okay, and send pictures of the activities that he was involved in. And it became very evident that this student was placed at our school because of the luxury of having an inclusion classroom next door. So oftentimes the district will place students in my classroom that they see needing some general education time in the future. And so his potential after a few weeks was just so obvious. And so invited mom in, got a translator or an interpreter, and we just talked about all the possibilities for him and all the wonderful things that he was doing, and that he was ready for potty training. And she didn't see all those wonderful things about him, so it was exciting to bring her in and have someone to help me interpret and translate to her, all the wonderful things that he was ready for. So from there on, we were in constant communication, and she was ready to jump in and be a part of his education. And like Giovanna mentioned, potty training at school and at home, and sending homework for her to work on, which she was really excited to do. And I'm happy to say that right before all of this madness happened, we had a meeting as a team, and he's going to be spending a lot of time in the inclusion classroom when we go back to school in the fall. So it was just a really positive situation where we got the family on board who maybe was kind of scared about special education and all the things that were happening in their life that they couldn't have predicted. And he's just going to be doing so wonderful. And yeah, so it's kind of an exciting story. And we all get to share the success on that because we have general education at our school, which is really exciting.
Right. So can you just explain a little bit more for those who are not familiar maybe with how it looks, with an SDC and an inclusion gen ed classroom right next to each other? Yeah.
So you'll hear the word intake a lot. So when a child turns 3, the parents take them to be assessed by the school district, by the services that they predict that they'll need. So they get a full evaluation, and they'll have an IEP team with the district intake team, and then the district will place them in a classroom. And so most sites, I think there are 2 other sites that have both an SDC and inclusion. We're pretty unique in the district. So what that looks like for our students is in the beginning of the year, typically we're fairly separate except for recess. So we have an hour a day outside where both classrooms are together, and my students are getting inclusion time at recess. And then as the year progresses and we see the need for it, I'll start sending students to their classroom to get, typically it's for language, and they need better peer models with more social skills and language skills. But then also in the reverse, they'll send students to my classroom who, again, have amazing social skills and are patient and want to kind of come into my classroom and model for students that are not quite ready to go to theirs, if that makes sense, but can still use that those role models.
Mm-hmm. So how often do you find that a child might like switch classrooms throughout the year? Sounds like this little guy.
Yeah,
was
we had
able to.
a ton of different situations. So Giovanna and Michelle have a student that their circle time was too large and abstract for him. And so he actually came to mine for kind of a smaller, more structured circle time. And then I had a student that she was projected to go general education for kindergarten. So we swapped during those circle times so they could access different things. This particular student that's gonna start again in August in their classroom, I think it was the first hour of the school day. So it was, the morning was free play and then recess. So he would get that kind of social language aspect and then a circle time that would challenge him a little bit more. But we do, and last year we've had students that have made the full transition in the beginning of the year. So I had a student who was in an SDC for a year, and then his second year before he went to kindergarten, he spent this entire last year in their classroom. So,
I was gonna say, we're always like thinking of ways for all of the kids to be included, and whether it's art or circle time or outside time. It's something that the three of us value, and I'm thankful that we're a very flexible team. Sometimes we have a plan for it, and sometimes Allie is like, hey, like, can we come into your classroom, this morning? We have some like low numbers, or I just feel like it would be great for them. And so we do that, and we like it. We love it. Works for us.
How much time do you guys like have off the floor to plan with each other? I mean, I'm more interested in like how you guys all find the time to collaborate and plan together.
I'll go first because I'm by myself. So I don't co-teach with anyone. I am the sole teacher. I have 4 or 5 aides in my classroom, paraprofessionals this year. They go home right when the kids do. So we have some paras that stay after school and get paid, and they like to hang up artwork, or they have ideas for art projects they want to kind of implement in the classroom, but that's not the norm. So the kids with IEPs leave at 12:40, and then the rest of the general education students stay until 2:40. So during that time, Giovanna and I can kind of collaborate about kids with IEPs. But other than that, I'm doing it amongst myself after the kids leave. But it's different for them.
Yeah. So Giovanna and I are from 8:40 to 12:40. We are in the classroom together the whole time except for breaks. And yeah, but that's not, I mean, I wouldn't call that time to collaborate because we're just like, doing stuff in the classroom. And then after 2:40, we, all the kids go home, and then we have time to collaborate, which we try to have like a weekly staff meeting. There's one day when the children go home at 1:40 instead, and it's like a team meeting day, and so we meet at that time with usually one of our paras, and yeah, but then just we share an office, the three of us share an office, and so after 2:40 I come in, and we're just there, and when something comes up, we're just we talk to each other, and we send emails back and forth, and yeah, I think I have to say that it has worked for us to have a lot of informal communication because we get along pretty well, and we work really well together, and we tend to be on the same page with things just naturally. So yeah, I mean, I think in a co-teach situation, if the teachers don't get along as well naturally, it can be harder, and you have to kind of have more delineated roles and things like that. But for us, it's worked to just kind of go with the flow, and
right.
Yeah.
Because you've all worked together for a few years now.
No, I just started in August.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, you said that.
Allie and I worked together for 2 years, and then Michelle and I, this will be the end of our first school year together.
Okay.
So
awesome. Yeah, it's nice that when you find a team that you can, informally connect with.
Yeah.
Super
I think
helpful.
two, yes, I am the special ed teacher, and yes, Michelle has a general ed credential, but it's never like my kids my responsibility, or like her kids and her responsibility. We're really good about like making sure that we're both supporting all of the students. I mean, two brains are better than one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we learn a lot from each other too, just being in the classroom together at the same time. It's not, we try to, like when we do circle time, we try to do it the same way. So even though we switch off leading it, we still do the same things in the same way, so that it could be either of us, right? We could just swap out and it's the same. It's not like, oh, it's my turn, I'm going to do it my way, and when it's your turn, you do it your way. We really try to collaborate and, do things together, right? Make decisions together and all of that.
And I think, Giovanna, you kind of hit home for me. Like, flexibility is like the word of the school year. Like, if I'm struggling with a student, or Giovanna's struggling with a student, or Michelle's struggling with a student, I might pop over and be like, I need you to come out into the hallway. I need to pick your brain, and no other adult in the classroom is going to be like, no, you can't do that. Like, we're flexible and we're here to support each other, and we tap each other out if you're having a hard time and you need, like, if Giovanna has a hard kid and she needs to tap out and take over my classroom for 10 minutes for a break, like, that is okay. And I think that that's helped us build kind of a trusting relationship where we can, informally communicate and collaborate and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think being able to ask for help in the moment is really key. Yeah, I worked in a co-teaching team for many years. So it's like, oof, I need some help over here. Any professional goals that you have on the top of your list when thinking about partnering with families? Something either a short-term goal or long-term goal that you want to strive towards?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's always a work in progress, right? Like, all families are different. They're all going to have preferred ways that they communicate or don't want to communicate with you. But just always, I feel like my personal goal is to be better at taking perspectives of families. It's really easy to say, like, no, this is the right way to do things because this is what I know and how I was raised. I would say both of my colleagues here are really good at, like, I say something and I'm frustrated. They're like, okay, well, like, think about it this way. So just, venting is important, but also making sure that, you're not just thinking with blinders on.
Yeah, I think to kind of go off Giovanna, I think a big one for me, and I think it will always be this way, is to understand families better from their cultural background and their home lives. And kind of in that, I have a personal goal or professional goal to do more home visits throughout the school year. I've done a few for families who really, really want them. I always offer, and not everyone takes me up on it, but I kind of want to make it just a part of my practice, because you learn so much by going into a family's home, and not even seeing how they interact with their child at the home, but you could just learn about, like, are they living in a small house, a big house? Is it safe? Who else is living there? And that can tell you so much about students' actions in the classroom, and even parents and how you're interacting with them and things like that. So yeah, I think that, and also finding a way to provide more family involvement in the classroom. And like I said, that looks difficult for trying to keep a routine and structure for kids who have autism. And then parents who are working during the day and might not speak English as a first language. But I would like the two of them do a really wonderful job of bringing parents into the classroom. And so I think that's definitely a professional goal of mine for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I just finished my field study where I had all of these goals about family partnership, and so, but I mean, I think just starting off building relationships, right? That's something I think is super important, and I think you can always improve in that way. So just seeing that first, right? Seeing how can I build trust with this family, right? And like involvement and stuff kind of comes out of that, right? If you can show them that you really care about their child and about their family, then they want to be involved. And I mean, at least to the extent that they can, and you know that even if they can't because they're working or whatever, that it's not because they don't care. It's, you know, it's because they can't. And yeah, home visits, I offered them and only one family wanted one. And so I went, but it really, like for that family, it was really meaningful to them that I was willing to do that. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a great practice. So I hope to be able to do more of that.
I would say one last thing too is professionally, I think it's important to accept too that you might not get through with families, you might not make a good connection with parents, you might not hear from them, and you know, don't beat yourself up if you feel like you've done everything you can and it's still not working out the way you want it to. Goodness of fit is a real thing, and I know I struggle with that a lot. I go home and I'm like, oh, like, you know, that was so awkward. Why is that interaction not the way I wanted it to? Just kind of accepting that happens, and then, you know, being grateful for all of the positive interactions and connections you've made with the other families. Just accepting that it's not always perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tell my teachers that all the time at my school, like, you know, don't take it personally if they don't respond, or, you know, don't read everything that you send them, you know. It's hard.
Yeah.
All right, anything, so last question, anything that you have learned about yourself or within partnerships that you would like to share with this group of students?
I mean, I think that you can never, ever go wrong by just showing a family that you love and adore and care and want what's best for their child. And like, what better way to start any relationship in your life? And I think too, like what Giovanna touched on, like not being hard on yourself. And I mean, you don't come out of grad school knowing there's not like one path to follow for being an educator. So there isn't a wrong way to connect with families. There isn't a wrong way to support a family. It's what works for you as a human and the family as a human. So just because I text and Giovanna might not, that doesn't mean she's not doing the right, you know, not connecting the right way. It's really going to vary, and to not compare yourself to others. And I think Giovanna touched on it really well too. Like, you might not be able to connect with a family the way that you want to, or the way that you did with another family. And we've seen that a couple of times this school year already. Sometimes we have kids that come to us from the intake team again, and they think that the district is out to get them, and they are never going to trust any educator again. And we can do our best to be honest and hope that they can trust us one day. But again, just doing what you know is best, and, you know, put all your feelers and your triers out there. And at the end of the day, if you can't connect with the family, then you put that aside and you do what's best for the kid while they're in your care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else want to share one last tidbit?
Yeah, I mean, kind of just what I said, it's not always going to be easy. You hope that it is, right? That would be the perfect scenario. But like finding ways that like if you're feeling frustrated, take a walk, you know, in the middle of your work day, and give yourself time too to communicate or respond with families if you know that it's someone that you're not always having the best interactions with. Like really taking the time. I've sat and written out something that should take me a 5-minute email take me 30 minutes, because you know you want to make sure that it's important. So yeah, take your time and
yeah, I mean, I think making sure that you practice self-care, you know, setting boundaries, which, you know, maybe not answering email on weekends, or I don't know, there's different things, and it works for different people different ways. But you know, knowing what you can do for yourself to kind of, you don't want to have any resentment, right? toward families. And so, you know, do what you have to do so that you can bring your full self when you're there. I think something else I was gonna, it slipped my mind. But let's see.
Self-care, something about.
No, that was it was a different point. I will.
Michelle, while you're thinking, a fun way
Yeah, go ahead.
a fun way to kind of think about it is, for special educators at least, your child has an IEP, and it's an individualized education plan. And so your plan or your method for connecting with families and interacting with them is going to be individualized based on a whole host of factors. And so if you can take how you think about a child and providing them services and adapting curriculum and everything that you do for them during the school day, if you can do that for a family too, then you'll probably be pretty successful.
I remembered what I was going to say, and it's just that children and families always come together. I mean, I think maybe less so in high school or something like that, but in pre-K, like, I mean, I know a lot of teachers go in saying, I love kids and I want to spend all day, you know, taking care of kids, and this is what I'm good at and this is what I love, and that's great, but you have to know that they come with families, right? And that's a huge part of the job, which is not something that most people think of. Like if you say I'm a preschool teacher, right, you don't realize how much of that job has to do with communicating with families in person and email and just everything. You know, kids come with families, and you have to be ready for that. And I mean, it's also, I find a lot of joy from interacting with the families as well as the kids. But I think that's just something to know before going into the field is that families are a big part of their children's lives. And so they have to be a big part of your teaching as well.
I think I say this to Giovanna all the time, that the parents and the families are, in my opinion, the hardest part of the job, because you go to grad school and you have years of experience, and you have so many different resources and curriculum and research that you can pull out and to help your students. But adults, just like we are unpredictable, and they come with different kinds of baggage and experiences. And so it's not something you can learn, or it's not something you can necessarily teach in like a graduate school program. It's something that it's trial and error. And but yeah, Michelle, you're right. It comes with the job, and we don't often always think about that.
Yeah. I like to think about it as like a customer service, right? Like your service is educating their kids, and if they, you know, they're going to have complaints or they're going to have positive things to say, and you have to put your best face forward. So always.
Hard, I think, at any school or in any, you know, field where you're working with families, it's hard. All right, well, I really appreciate you all taking the time out of your busy schedules to meet with me and share a little bit about your experience. I know that in previous semesters, my students always love the day that we have, the full day of, you know, presenters. But so this be able to give them this semester. But yeah, thank you so much. And I hope that the rest of your semester goes well. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck, everybody.
Yep.